Hi, Gabrielle, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
You look so pretty. What
Thank you.
you been doing today? You look gorgeous.
Working.
Hi, Helene. Can you hear me? He's not responding, but it's okay. That's all good. Um,
How have you been, Monique? How was your Tuesday?
my Tuesday has been it's been my moon.
It's
It's
Moon
here.
Week.
It's Moon Week, so I'm with the moon. I'm with the moon, and I'm holding on to myself. I'm nurturing myself and resting and drinking lots of water and
Very good.
yes, it feels really good. And I'm really excited about our class tonight, and I just am loving our work so much. Like it's like I'm so happy about it. Like I feel so gifted to be able to do this.
Indeed. I'm glad that you know how blessed you are to have this work come through you and then to share it with other people.
it's just
Because
it's
as we heal others, we heal ourselves.
That's right. That's it. What we that's right. Um so how are you doing?
I am doing wonderful. I am just wow. It's a transformative time for sure. And the mother wound is being healed.
Yes.
I know it so deeply. So I'm so present with
Yeah.
you and with myself and with our circle of mother healers.
Yes. Healing that mom woman. It's such a beautiful time to be doing it now. And um I'm just honored. I really am. Hi Halim.
Greetings, Brother Halim.
Greeting. Right. I love Halim. Our man who's holding it down.
He's like, I'm a representative of the brothers for the feminine. Okay.
We like it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I'm
we
here in New Orleans
uh-huh.
having a yeah, I'm here in New Orleans having a lovely time.
I
And
love
anytime I break away from, what I'm doing just to be here, then I'm getting some benefit from it.
Yes. That means a lot, Halim. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So why don't we pray, bless the space in, and then we can do a few minutes of check-in and then we'll go right into what we're working on because it's really important in my perspective that I offer you the opportunity to shift gears in this class so that we can, really begin to identify where it is we want to go with this for ourselves. Because now we know where we are. So let's just do a little sacred work. Let's do a little prayer, okay? Okay, so I'm going to mute everyone. Okay. So let's just take 3 deep cleansing breaths together. Hold.
Oh, send a couple of these back.
And so how good it is to come into this space of sacred communion. Absolutely knowing that there is only one life, and that life is the divine mother of the goddess. She is everywhere present. There's no place where we can go or be or exist that does not allow us to commune with the goddess at the highest level, with the divine mother of the universe, the creator of all things. And so in this recognition of this divine feminine power, this presence, I give thanks for our time together this evening. I know that each of our ancestors are here with us, that they are cheering for us, that they are celebrating us, that they are being healed by the work that we are doing. I know that we are infused with the power of the divine goddess in every aspect of our lives, in our minds, in our hearts, in our cells, in our daily activities, in our understanding of the universe, and in our understanding of ourselves. That we are creators, creators with the goddess, with the mother. And that we create from a deep and profound place of oneness and acceptance and unconditional love. And so I bless this time together. I pray and ask that everything that needs to be said will be said with grace and ease. I pray that everything that needs to be released will be released with grace and ease. I pray that all that needs to be known is available, that our minds and hearts are opened and aligned. I give thanks for each person that loved us, that loves us, that has supported us in any way fathomable and possible to this moment now. I give thanks for our willingness to show up for ourselves and be more than we were yesterday, trusting and knowing that there is a greatness within us, that there is a power within us, that there is a love within us that can conquer anything that would stop us from being true to who we are. And so I am grateful. I'm appreciative. And I know that all is well. I let it be and I say, and so it is. Ashe. I give thanks for the mind that knows the way. And I give thanks for the heart that is the way. And so it is. Well, hello. I'm so grateful that everyone is here tonight. And I wanted to, so we're going to do a couple of things. The first thing I really want to do is, that feels important to me is, as you all know, I am running this course along with the moon work. And the reason that I run it with the moon work is because that is the natural creative energy of our planet. The moon and those 8 phases are a phase, is a cycle of life and death and rebirth, right? And so what we do in alignment with the moon, and I haven't been making it a primary aspect of the work because it doesn't need to be, because I've been directing it in consciousness. But I do want to bring you to a little bit of an awareness of it. And this day, it is important that we begin to envision who we want to be when this course is over with. When we've completed this work and we can look back through this 1 month and we want to be able to say, this work has made a difference in this way in my life. And it's not going to be easy to pinpoint one way, because what I have learned in doing this work for myself is that it is a continuum. It never really stops. And it will continue to give to you. You know, this work is a journey. It's, as you can, I've designed it in a way that is very feminine. It's a flowy kind of work. It's an internal work. It's, yes, there are homework assignments. Yes, there are tasks, and yes, there are lectures, but really you get to take this in at your level. You get to take your time with it. You get to be with it. You get to allow yourself to go on a journey with it. And so that is how I designed the course, for it to be a journey. And it's about the journey and really not about the destination, honestly. And so with that, I want you also to be aware that the little girl in you or the little boy in you that started this course, possibly feeling unloved, unseen, not connected to your sense of value and worth, deep senses of loneliness or fear or frustration around your experience with your mother, I want to offer you the opportunity to consider, how would you like that little person within you to feel at the end of this? And because we are now in the seeing phase of the moon, I'm going to encourage you to start asking yourself, asking spirit, praying, even the picture that you're looking at of your mother each day blessing, asking yourself, what is it that you could do for that aspect of yourself on a regular basis that would transform your heart and soul? What could you do? I know for me, for instance, when I first started doing this work, one of the things I started doing was, I remember just like, I used to have an idea that my mother's hips drove me crazy. She was she was like a 5'9", 5'10", and she was a very hippie woman, right? And hippie and curvy, very womanly. And I never wanted to have that body type. Like it just occurred when I saw her, I felt shame. And so at some point I started giving myself permission to love my body just as it was, rather than sending it a message to dare not be like my mother, because that was the message that I was sending to my body. Please don't shape yourself like her. And when people would say, you look just like your mother, you shape just like your mother, I would curse them, I would curse myself, and I would curse my mother. And so I gave myself permission to love my body. And I would envision myself holding my 3-year-old self and telling my 3-year-old self, look at your little body. Look at how beautiful it is. Look at your hands. Look at your arms. Look at your legs. Look at your belly. You're so beautiful. And I started doing that, and it really transformed the way I saw myself. And it released me from that identity I had connected to my mother that made me feel like who she was and what her body was like was something that I shouldn't be proud of. And so I'm going to ask you today to begin considering, in every idea that comes, write it down. Write down what you might do. You don't have to make any decisions yet. Just think about how you feel and what other choices, what other things you might be willing to take on. What else is possible? When you have an idea of something that occurred between you and your mother, ask yourself, that created an imprint inside of you. We want to begin to reframe those imprints. What else is possible here? What else could I do? What else could I be? What else could I think? And, maybe you get an idea to, who knows? Maybe you get an idea to call your mother and have a conversation with her. Maybe you get an idea to, to mentor other little girls or little boys or something like that who don't have mothers or experiences with them. Like whatever just write those ideas down. Just write them down, because your healing is tied up in the choices that you will make to reframe the identity, the imprints, and the stories that you have holding of your mother and yourself. So that's all I'm going to say there. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Hi, Monique.
Yes, hi.
Hi. Yeah, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say thank you. I think that is just awesome. Like, to begin to see the other side of this. I hadn't really thought about that so much. I mean, I thought about my intention, but not so much of that specifically in terms of the way I want to experience my mother when I think about her. You know, a difference from the way I started. I mean, it's already shifting, but yeah, because I would like to have a relationship similar to what I'm experiencing with my daughter, you know, which is beautiful and sweet and all of that. And because I do know that my mother and I had some sweet times, I just don't always remember them right now. So I would just like to be able to pull those forward more often, you know?
Yes.
And then also be able to really look back on those challenging times and just see the lesson in it and just be like, you know, this is what I learned so that I can share it without a whole bunch of pain and stuff, you know?
Absolutely.
I know what I've experienced. I'm certainly not alone. I know that.
Right.
I know that. Yeah.
That's
so
good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And happy birthday.
Thank you.
Go, Hunia. Go, Hunia. Okay, great. Does anyone else have a question before we're going to go into, because Miss Gabrielle we're going to have a great conversation about consciousness. So if you have another question about what I mentioned, then you can ask that now. If not, we can come back later. Okay. Cool. Well, let me change the slide because that's what I'm doing. Ha. Hi, Gabrielle.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you, Miss Monique. It is a pleasure.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So,
an absolute pleasure. And I think it's so, we're always on the same page. So the question that dropped in my spirit for this seeing phase is, who do I get to be because of my mother's experience? And this ties in so much to these different levels of consciousness, because I'm going to start from the very bottom. And if we look at this chart, if you are a member of JLA, you know the difference between power and force. Force is a little bit more masculine. It requires action. It requires like you're just struggling, you're pushing. Power says, come this way. It's a lot more ease. So with most of our mother wounds, a lot of us have at least at one point felt shame. Shame is the lowest level of consciousness. It is a level where people commit suicide. It is a level where we are literally miserable. We're humiliated. It's the lowest level. It's the level where people kill people, that are psychos, all these different things. And the next level is guilt. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit because I missed my whole point. But who do I get to be because of my mother's experience? I want you to hold on to that question. And as we go up the levels of consciousness, you will get to choose, who do I get to be because of my mother's experience? And not just let that story choose for you. So we have shame as the lowest level of consciousness. Then the next level is guilt. We've all felt guilty about something we've done, whether it was to our child or to a lover or something we did to a sibling growing up. We know what guilt feels like, but we can't stay there. Now, the thing about these different levels is most of us has experienced a wide range of them. But for us to rise in consciousness, we have to master a level. So to come out of shame, you have to master what shame feels like and being stuck in that consciousness and know how to get out of it. Now you have to know how to get out of guilt, which is where we play the JLA people know, no shame, no blame. We're not blaming people because we are taking responsibility and accountability for our life. So we have apathy above that. Now, apathy is where you are pretty much neutral. You are like, I don't give a F-bomb about anybody. And you really don't care about yourself. So it is where you are so neutral that you are almost emotionalist. And that is, that I put a T on that, but emotionalist is where you are making yourself not feel. And of course, we know that's not a good place to be either, because our human experience is to emote. It is to have a wide range of pain and pleasure moving back and forth. And eventually we will start to master those pains and pleasures. So apathy, we don't want to be there either. And of course, the life view on that is hopelessness, where we just feel like I can't lift myself. I can't get any lower. And I know I've felt that before for a short time, because I'm like, we got to move out of this. The next one is grief. It's one of my most, I know grief well, and I've never lost anybody, but I grieve when a persona of my own is dying. I literally give her ceremony. I literally feel her dying. So most of us know grief. I can't say, I didn't come from a big family, so I have not lost anybody like my mother, father. I didn't know my grandmother or aunties or anything. So I have not felt grief in the way where, oh, I lost my aunt, I'm grieving. I don't know what that feels like. I know what it feels like from grieving about my own personas dying. And I'm sure many of us know about that. And I'm going to start moving a little bit faster. If anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat. Miss Sabrina, I saw that you put something, so we're going to get there when we get out of the fourth section. And okay, so we're at grief, and that is where we feel regret, where we wish we had said something to someone, or I wish I had lived a certain way, or I wish I would have done something different. Now you're out of hopelessness because now you're starting to hope you did something different. The next level we have is fear, which is where we're anxious, which is where we're unsure. We're kind of withdrawn. We're to ourselves. We are, that's where we can experience like we feel like we're a burden to other people, whether it's our family, our marriage, our children, or our children are a burden to us. And we're just all around frightened from life itself. We feel that somebody is out to get me. Something is out to get me. This story that I experienced is out to destroy me. We've made something or someone our enemy at the fear level. Okay. So the next level is desire. Now we're starting to lift up a little bit. Now, I don't want you to get desire confused with courage or neutrality or willingness, because we're not quite there yet. Desire is where it's a little bit of envy. It's I don't believe I deserve this, so I'm craving it, but I don't truly believe it's for me. So it's still a lower level of consciousness, although we're starting to get a little bit higher. And the process is a level of enslavement. Once again, we are still in victim mentality when we are in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, when we're in the 6th level of desire. We're still thinking that something is above us, holding us down, and our life view is we're disappointed because of it. Now, as Black America, there are Black people on this call, so I'm going to say a lot of us are still stuck here because of slavery and because we have not freed our minds yet. And because of epigenetics, we're taking on some of our ancestors' memories and pains that we have not mastered that consciousness. I'm telling y'all, when Dr. Monica, she didn't put it in the ballpark for me. I am literally my grandmother. I truly have embodied that. I have her consciousness. It is my job to master my great-grandmother's, my grandmother, and my mother's consciousness. That's what this contract is about. That's what I have owned it as. And that is very empowering for me to know that it's just not me. It's not just this lifetime that I'm dealing with. So the next level above that is anger. Now that's where you start to get some passion. That's when the warrior deity is a little bit more present, which is Heruka Huti in Kemet. I don't know the Greek names of Kemet. If anyone chimes in, Heruka Huti, and what is his Greek name? Anubis? Is it Anubis? Do you know, Monique?
Anubis is the god of the underworld.
Is that Heruka Huti? Is that warrior?
No, he's not the warrior. Mm-mm.
Which one is the
Isn't it Nekabet?
It may be. It may be. I don't know the Greek mythology.
Okay.
I just want to be relatable for everyone here. But that's where we have a level of passion, which is a source of energy for transformation. A lot of us are still here, where we are still angry about our past. We still have anger about our ancestors' past. And we have a little hate and aggression for life itself because of what generations before us experienced. Now, once again, this generation, this lifetime, this contract, it is our job to master these levels. And you got to go within to do it. Okay? So the next level is pride. Now we are starting to go into the positive side of consciousness. And a lot of us are here too, where we have pride in who we are, or we're too proud to ask for this, or we're too proud to ask for that. It still is like a dignity thing that, you know, and this is big for where I think the feminine is right now as a collective. We have this pride thing where we don't want to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Now, vulnerability belongs to us. It's ours. We make it look good and sexy if we want to, you know. So that is the 8. The 8th level of consciousness, where because of our pride, it is making us a demanding person. Like we literally feel like, I remember ancestors, not ancestors, but elders saying to me all the time, girl, you walk around like this world owe you something. I know everybody's heard that. That is the consciousness of pride, where you literally are walking around like somebody owe you something, where you have not embodied humility yet, that you are on this planet to serve as well and not only be served. Okay. So the next level is courage. Now, a lot of us are definitely here because we have the courage to change our lives. We have the courage to affirm, to empower, to seek out different things and different informations that are going to lift us up. We know that there is change available, and we know that we deserve to reach for that. So this is where we are literally pulling ourselves up. Like, I'm not staying where I was. I'm not staying in my grandmother's consciousness. I'm not staying in my mother's consciousness. I can literally see the light, and I'm going to reach for that. You have the courage to desire more for your life. Okay. The next level is neutrality. And this is such a beautiful level because when we think of neutrality, we think of a certain level of peace. That's what peace, if we have pain, you have pleasure, in the middle is a certain level of peace. Now we're not at the total embodiment of peace, but with neutrality, we are starting to trust the laws of the universe. We are starting to trust the world we live in, no matter what we see going on out there. We are starting to trust that there are laws that govern me as an individual, and there are laws that govern the entire universe that I can choose to trust in, that I can stand on and move from with a certain level of groundedness. Okay, so that is where we can start to let go. We can let go of ideas and concepts that no longer serve us. And I'm going to bring it back. We can start to learn to let go of our grandmothers, our mothers, our great-grandmothers, traumas. We can let them go. We can choose to be well without them. Okay? I'm going to have a little drink really quick while I'm talking. Our next level, now we're into power. And what power is magnetism or attraction. You're not out there hustling, just being extremely physical to make things happen. You are starting to let things come to you. That's a part of that trust level where you're like, hey, I know how this universe works. I have the ability to draw things into me. Okay. So willingness is what we're practicing right here, where we are saying that I know I can heal my mother wound. I know that this is not it for me. I know that this requires work, and I'm willing to give that. So this is the level where we start to have faith, when we start to let light in a little bit more. And the process is intention. Miss Monique helped us set a beautiful intention when we started this program. And our life view is we are hopeful. We're hopeful that there is something on the other side of this work. So everybody is, once again, we experience these different levels, but once again, we want to master them to actually gain levels of consciousness. And you can ask yourself, and you know where you've been about, what level, which is not really that important at this time. So our next level is acceptance. Now that we're about the halfway point of this program, that is where we're trying to peak. We want to get to a level of acceptance as we go into the masculine phase of this moon cycle. We want to have a level of forgiveness to our mothers, her mothers, and her mother. Okay, so that we can truly transcend that pain that has enslaved us at some point. Okay, and where we find a level of harmony. That's a beautiful level. And I'm sure that many of us have experienced that. That is where when we choose to forgive something, it's almost like you have to tell yourself, you have to fake forgive. You have to tell yourself you're going to forgive. You have to be willing to forgive. And eventually things start to settle out. Eventually you find peace with that story, or you find peace with that person. And now you're feeling light. Now you're feeling like this story does not own me anymore. That is what acceptance feels like, where you are no longer a victim to it. You found the nuggets in it. And once again, who do I get to be because of my mother's experience? This is going to take us over a hump. This is going to fill a dark spot in us, where we have now accepted and forgiven our mothers and her mothers and her mothers. And we get to ask ourselves, you know, from this story, am I a triumph? That's a higher consciousness identity. Am I a shero or a hero because of my mother? Am I a victor? Am I a victory? Am I an anomaly? Am I something that's unique? And these are our own ideas, and these are just some of the things that I have come up with. And of course, ask yourself, who do you get to be? But many of us have allowed ourselves to be in the lower consciousness, where we have been a victim, where we have been abused, neglected, not cared about. Those are the ideologies we have allowed to stick to us from our mother's story, from our childhood stories. So in this moment, in this seeing phase, who do you see yourself as? Do you see yourself as a triumph or a victor? It's not as easy as it sounds, but if you start off with a choice, you get to go over that hump because a way will open for you. From acceptance, we go with reason. I like reason a lot. It's like one of my favorite spots because I'm very mental. And stuff has to make sense to me. Ain't that right, Miss Monique? Stuff has to make sense to us for us to feel a level of victory, right? We have to feel that, you know what? I can break down the layers of how this worked out. I have a clear understanding of what happened there. Even though 20 years ago, 30, 40, whatever, I had no idea. I thought I was a victim. I thought I was abused. I thought I was neglected. I thought that she didn't care. I thought that I didn't matter. But now I totally get it. And most of us women, when we become mothers, we have a certain level of understanding that we could never have when it comes to raising our children. So this is where we start to have a reason, and our mother's stories start to have a meaningfulness to them. That, wow, if it wasn't for her being that way, if it wasn't for my childhood, I would never have this understanding. And a big part of that for me is I was sexually abused as a youth, and now I have 3 daughters. My awareness of my 3 daughters, because of what happened in my mother's home, is off the chain. And I'm literally gonna make cake out of it because that's what I choose to do. I get to be God with this. I am goddess. So we get to extract certain things. I would not be Hunia if this didn't happen. I would not be Sarah Zabrina, like Sarah Zabrina. I just love that together. I would not be her if my mom was not the woman she was. I would not be Monique Ruffin had my mother been any other way. I wouldn't have the insight of life. This is where we start to have a deeper understanding and give meaningfulness, give light to our stories, to our past, to our childhood. Okay. The next level is love. And we've all experienced love. And I'm not talking about that chemical reaction that you feel when you see that man or you see that woman. I'm talking about love. Love. It's like a binding, like, yeah, that kind of love, like that worshiping type of thing, you know, where it's in our instance of our mother's stories and our childhood wounds, how can we make love out of that? And actually start to love that story. And that's where I feel like we just kind of fall off the train. These things happen and we just stay in the grieving, or we stay in the fear, or we stay in the apathy, and we just don't know. We think there's a ceiling that, oh, I was this, you know, I experienced this. That means I'm just here. I can't go any higher than this level here. I can't push through. There is nothing higher, but there actually is. You can choose to give meaningfulness and reverence to the story. You can choose to give reverence to your mother because you are her today. That's a high level of living. And for that level to be mastered, that's some very high consciousness. And I'm not a person who, I don't want to range anybody. I'm not going to range myself. But to master the love consciousness, that's very high consciousness. To master it, to literally say that you never go any lower than love. Many of us are attaining that. We are practicing that level of consciousness. And because we're getting closer to the age of Aquarius, that is much more attainable. 100 years ago, very few people were experiencing that. That's where witch hunting came from. People who were living in high levels of consciousness, high vibes. There were a people who didn't understand it. They were like, how are you living so good and so happy? And they would go seek them out to tear them down. So to know that that level is something that we can reach for, but once again, it's not truly our level of consciousness until we master it, until we never really fall out of it. And if we do, we know how to get back very quickly. So we are literally living in a game. We're literally living in Nintendo. Dun, dun. Are you going to get that little mushroom that you go get or whatever, that little thing, and you're going to eat it? Are you going to big up? Are you going to allow yourself to stay in these levels, or are you going to fall down and stay down? It's a game. It really is. And for the masculine, that's awesome. Men love sports and games. So it's like, okay, I'm going back up. For women, we have to, let it be a game. Let it be an artistry. I would say is more of a feminine aspect of it. Let it be an artistry of how we live, how we choose to fight for our own joy, happiness, and love. Okay, so joy is where we are just serene. And I know all of us have experienced these levels. At least some point you can think of a point where you just had bliss, where you were just at a level of serenity that you trusted the universe, you trusted where you were at that moment, you trusted that more of that was to come, and you felt a level of wholeness, like, yes, this is it. It's almost like that I have arrived moment, even though you never really arrived. It's that kind of thing. So the next level, which is the 16th level, is total peace. This is the level of absolute bliss. Many of us in orgasm experience this, but that's for a short time. So we feel that everything is truly complete, truly balanced, perfected. We feel lit up. We know that we are God and Goddess. We live in that embodiment. And it's not a forceful thing. Again, it's a powerful thing. It's so unseeable. You don't even see it. You can't see it on somebody. It's something you own within. It's free of arrogance. It's free of ego. It is, Miss Sarah's asking another question. I'm going to pull it up. It is spirit. Where does gratitude fit? James, okay. Gratitude. So as you see, the force is all yellow. Soon as you get to courage, you are literally, that's where you start to turn over gratitude. Gratitude exists in all of the blue. But you don't start to even acknowledge gratitude until you get into the courage level. Because that's what you have the courage to do, is be grateful. You literally have the courage to be grateful and affirm things and be empowered in your life. Is that in the love vibe? No. So, love is when you have a very high level of gratitude. where you know that everything is divine and that, you know, and that things are working out for you, even though you are one small speck of the universe, that everything is working out just for you, that you are that special, that you are that individual and unique as a part of a huge wholeness at the same time. It's such a unique thing where I think to have these higher levels of joy, reason, love, all these different things, we have to have such a beautiful balance of individuality and collectiveness that that's where there's a level of mastery that has to occur. That it's not a selfishness, but you know that life is about you. You know that you have the choice, but you also have so much humility that you serve with love, or that you serve with a purpose, or that you know that serving someone else is serving yourself. There's a level of oneness and collectiveness and individuality all at the same time. So those are kind of the things that are being mastered to go higher in these levels of consciousness. Okay. So the very highest level is enlightenment. And we all experience levels of that. That is the it just is level. It just is. And I mean, just saying that, I feel my whole my vibration changing just saying that. It just is. Wow. That's a piece. I'm going to have to write that one down. It just is. I think I'm going to make a picture out of that. But these are the 17 levels of consciousness, of human consciousness. And I want to give credit to David R. Hawkins. I am not super familiar with his work, but this chart has popped up in life several different times, and I thought it would be extremely helpful for us to collectively explore the fact that we are living with other people's consciousness, our ancestors' consciousness in us today, and that we get to choose where we are with it. And more importantly, we are finding our mothers. So we're going to more so focus on our mother's consciousness. So I want you to take a moment and just kind of recall some childhood times. Recall the 0 to 7 phase and ask yourself, where do you believe your mother's consciousness was at that time? Not yours, but where was your mother's consciousness from the 0 to 7? Any memories you can think of. And, you know, seeing her be angry one time, you know, that's that. But where do you think she was as a collective of memories? Where do you think her consciousness was at that time? And please write it down for yourself. And you can be between two levels of consciousness. That is absolutely possible. If there are even 3 main levels of consciousness that you felt you witnessed your mother experience, and taking in part of what you learned about her as she was a child and a teenager. Gather all that information and go ahead and place your mother where you think she was. What do you think her life view was? Was she miserable all the time? Was she condemning to everyone, which is literally evilness? Was she hopeless? Was she frightening? You know, was she always grieving? Was she full of regret? Was she disappointed? Was she demanding, satisfactory, hopeful, harmonious all the time? And that's for 0 to 7. Now, from 0 to 7, honestly, we are in the high at least 4 levels as children. At least maybe the first 6, I would say. Because we don't have a story yet. We don't have anything to enslave us. I mean, we do have our past information that we came here with. But for the most part, children are vibrating pretty high. because they're not attached to anything. They're still close to the God essence, to the source essence. Okay? So from 7 to 14, which is when we start to own a story and our consciousness starts to change. And if you look at Christianity, around 12 years old is where you can become saved, because now you have a level of consciousness. And I'm sure in other cultures, I think I'm interested in researching that. I probably will. When do they say that you now have consciousness and that you are responsible for it? But from 7 to 14, you can range yourself if you like. But most importantly, where do you think your mother's consciousness was? Now that she's had an additional 7 years, I truly remember my mom stepping into more of a hopefulness when I was in middle school. So she had increased, she risen in her consciousness from the 0 to 14 mark. And at that time, many of us were still under her care. Some of us were not, but many of us were still under her care. So we were still very heavily affected. Now, if you were around anybody else at that time, from 7 to 14, you may also write their name down and their level of consciousness that you saw for the most part, because we're all affected by this, and we want to kind of gather some reasoning of where we are today. Does anybody have any questions while we're just taking this time? We're doing good on time, Miss Monique?
Yeah. Yes, we're good on time. It's 7:51, and I'm not gonna ask any questions yet. I want to see if anybody else has anything.
Okay. So that 0 to 7 age range is the foundation of who we are. So that one is very important. It's like that first level of ideology of who we are as an individual. The 7 to 14 is more of where we start to gather a world view.
So if anyone has questions, you can certainly take yourself off mute. We'd love to hear your voice.
Yeah, Miss Sarah has asked a question in the chat.
Sarah, you don't want to unmute yourself, Sarah? You don't want to? You don't have to.
I can.
Okay, great.
I just didn't want to interrupt
Okay.
if she was still explaining things, but I wanted to ask my question while it was in my mind. But hi, Gabrielle.
Hello, darling.
So awesome. So I think you were kind of starting to explain it as I was typing it, but I was just thinking that if we're starting to create our own story with our consciousness between the ages of 7 and 14, does that mean that whatever we absorbed from our mom during those ages, like where her consciousness is that somehow weightier for us as we become an individual and see ourselves in the world? But then you were saying that the ages from 0 to 7 maybe would be more powerful because that's kind of when it's all going into the subconscious. I'm just curious how to separate those influences around the two age.
Yep. So from 0 to 7, we are more so gathering story about who we are from our environment. From 7 to 14, we are gathering a world view, which, depending on how your consciousness is wired, this is different for everybody, and astrology has a large part to do with that. Our worldview, some people take their worldview as more important than their individual view. I know for me, being an Aquarius, because I am so broad, and you are too, what we gather about the world has more weight than what I gather about myself. Because now I'm comparing, okay, I am here living in the project, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but I know that there are little girls like me who are now Olympians, or there are little girls like me who are, who grew up to be married to magnificent men and have beautiful families. I literally grew up in the projects, and I'm like, I saw stories outside of me that gave me a different worldview, that I knew that I would be greater than where I am. I knew that it wouldn't hold me. So I don't think it's absolute to say that one has more precedence over the other. I think it's just your consciousness and astrology, you know. For some of my friends who are Leos, which are more ego-based, what they believe about themselves has more weight about what they believe about the world, is something I've observed. Would you say that has truth to it, Miss Monique, based off astrology? You have to unmute yourself.
Every astrological sign takes on their own individual way to identify with themselves and the world. And you're right, Aquarians tend to have a higher perspective generally. You guys just have a purview that is, unique, where somebody who's like a Capricorn, their perspective is focused on what they are able to achieve, right? They are focused, they define themselves based upon their achievement. So if they're have a very difficult relationship with their mother, and they can't drive success in that relationship, or peace or joy in that relationship, then they would define themselves, probably as unworthy or unvaluable or unloved or something like that. And so every sign will have a different way of being with it, and every individual is unique. And even if you're both Aquarians, you're going to have a different perspective of it. So, astrology is vast, but it's also very, it's very personal, is what I want to say. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think that, like you said, I can't say that one section has more precedence over the other, because what if something happened at 7 to 14
Mm-hmm.
that really put an imprint on us,
Mm-hmm.
But 0 to 7 is more personal view, 7 to 14 is more world view, and then we'll go into the next level of 14 to 21.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we range our mothers at that time? Because now our consciousness has changed, and now we can see our parents in a whole new light.
Right.
So we also want to jot down, where do we believe our parents were, where our mother was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. And we're bringing this all together because we get to ask ourselves, do I want to make it an initiative, make it an effort daily to reach for a higher consciousness? And just like every other sport, every other art, it requires practice. It requires discipline. It requires that there is an intention to do it. So we get to choose. Who do I get to be because of my mother's story? We get to choose, where do I allow my mother's level of consciousness currently, or even from my childhood? How do I allow that to be who I am today? And we get to make a choice, but for healing to really occur, we have to understand there is no true separateness from our mother, because we are her. We are new, we are hybrid, but we literally embody her memories, her experiences, all these different things. We were made inside of her body. So the level of, and I'm saying this for me, because as a teenager, I was like, I do not want to be like that lady. And that has been that was a part of my intention for this class, is to embrace my mother, truly embrace her as myself. And because of her, I get to be who I am today. And I've always said that about our parenting, because she had a certain fight and she fought it well. She allowed me to be where I am. And now I have a certain fight for my generation of children.
It's 11 o'clock.
Oh, my computer's always telling me what time it is. But we get to choose where we are. And that is empowering. Highly, highly empowering to me. Does anybody else feel the same way? Does anybody want to share or ask questions about where they believe their mother was and how that may have affected them?
So this is Monique. I wanted to share an experience, and maybe it would help people connect for themselves. And I'm not going to talk about my mother, but I want to talk about my grandmother, because my grandmother actually raised me. And a couple of years ago, I was doing work with a shaman, and we did plant medicine. And so we would all get together in a group. We would take our sleep things and our pillows and blankets, and we would work on a particular issue and topic. And there were people there who were facilitating, right? So we would take the plant medicine, and this is kind of like I was with the Peruvian shaman, and we weren't taking ayahuasca. It was like milder medicines, like mistletoe and orchid and things like that. And one of the people was sitting with me, one of the facilitators was sitting with me, and I had taken the medicine, and I was telling the story of what it was like to grow up in my household with my grandmother. Because my mother wasn't available, my grandmother took me in and raised me. And I was telling a story about how my grandmother used to wake up in the morning at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to work. And she would lock me in her bedroom because she had a son who lived with us as well, who was much, much older than I was. Like maybe he was 29 or so, and I was very young, like a little girl, 10 or 11. And she would lock me in the room because her son was a heroin addict, and he had molested his daughter. He had done some really horrible things. And my grandmother didn't want to kick her son out of the house. Like, she didn't want him to go back to jail or anything. So she would lock me in the bedroom and lock the door, and so he couldn't get to me. And then she called me in the morning and wake me up and, instruct me to get dressed and then like leave the house quietly. And this went on for months, maybe a couple of years. And I was always safe. But I remembered when I told the story to the person that I was telling it to on the night of the plant medicine ceremony, I told it in a way that really focused on my uncle and the environment that I grew up in and how traumatizing it was. And she said, it's so interesting that you don't tell that story from the perspective of what a warrior your grandmother was, and how she literally created a space to keep you safe and to keep him safe as well, to keep him out of jail. And when she said it, I just went, huh. Like, it didn't occur to me that I could frame that story in a different way. It didn't occur to me that I could tell that story in a way like, my grandmother really went out of her way under the circumstances. A woman who was raising men who were born under the, police oppression and with all of the stuff that was going on in the Black community in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And she was really trying to save their lives and saving my life as well. Mm. And when I got that, like what she had done, it shifted everything inside of me. It made me go, oh, like she fought for my life. and didn't throw his life away in the process. What a badass.
Right.
What an amazing woman. I don't know that I could do that today. I don't know that I'm capable of that.
Right.
So I really want you guys to be with these stories, these experiences, and see how you're holding the story. Like, are you holding it with guilt and shame and pride? You know, like, are you holding it with love? And like, because you can take the worst story and shift it around until it becomes a story of healing. It's possible. So that's all I'm going to say. And I'm going to invite anybody to ask questions or share anything if they want to.
That was beautiful, Monique. Thank you for that share. Wow.
You're welcome. Okay, somebody's making it. I wish you guys would come and talk.
They don't want to talk to us. Nobody wants to talk. Anil wants to talk to us.
I want to talk.
Okay, great. Come on.
So I hear what you're saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, my mind is saying that's bullshit.
Yes.
That's ego.
My mama was mean and all kind of shit. Fuck that shit. Like, whatever. I was big enough, I would whoop her ass. Oh my God. But
Yes.
that's my mama.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't do that. And I really know underneath all of this that she was really doing the best she can.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. Like, I wouldn't be taking this class if I didn't know for real underneath,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that's just me for this brief moment.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to extend this so that I can say that all the time for real and mean it. You know what I mean? And really, really know that. So, because I know it right now mostly in theory.
Yeah.
But as a practice, when I tell the story, I'll have you crying and about to kick my mama's ass. You know, you be trying to raise her from the grave. You be like, what? He did what? That bitch what? You know, so that's how I relate to it right now.
Yes.
But when I think about it, when I think about where she was
Mm-hmm.
when I was from 0 to 7, it was hard for her.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't want no children. She didn't want to be married. You know, she didn't want to be the oldest child, having to raise my grandmother's 6 children, you know, and she was forced to marry once she found out she was pregnant. She didn't know who the father was because she was out here doing her thing. You know what I'm saying? So she couldn't name one because all the men looked alike. She liked the type. They was all tall, dark, and beautiful. All of them 6'3", 6'4", 5", whatever. You know what I mean? And she was out there in them streets just doing her thing, you know? And she got caught. And so now, you know, now she dealing with this baby. She dealing with this husband. You know, she out here going to the clubs every week and getting put out the house. The baby in the house, she's sneaking out the window. I mean, it's like all of that, you know? And
so where was her consciousness?
Her consciousness was probably somewhere between shame
and
anger.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so where does that live in you? You don't have to answer that question. I'm not asking you to answer it. I'm asking you to consider it.
Right.
Based upon your mother's experience, where does it live in you? And then where would you like to go with it?
Right. See, now I just want to go lay down and go to sleep.
And right. you can do that.
Oh,
you can
tired.
Because I'm telling it's and you see that's how the energies work, right? Like it's, and so if you never look at it, touch it, examine it,
right,
it will stay with you in that way. Because Hunia, you and I, we're both grown ass women, right? We're not 20 something. Yeah, you know, I love Miss Gabrielle. She's 29.
Yeah, girl, because I'm like 35. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, well that's good. I know, so that's right.
I mean, I know it. You know, it says something about my character that my daughter's 29 and my son. But I am 35.
Right. So I respect that. But what I'm saying is that you see how long this stuff will live in you,
Yeah, no, yeah, I
if you
know.
don't
Yeah,
address it, right?
yeah,
And so that's, you know, so it's for me, I can be 49 still. I mean, literally, I started doing the plant medicine work when I was 47 or so.
right.
So it took that long for me to be able to redefine that story about my grandmother.
Yes.
And
yes.
and so, and I've been working it. That's what we got to just keep the work up. And the reason I do it for me, but I also do it for my child.
Right.
Because I want to stop the cycle.
Yes.
I want to stop the cycle. So with that, I'm going to say thank you, Hania. I love you. Thank you for your candor. I get it.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Thank you all.
Would anyone else like to share, ask a question?
Anybody else?
Anybody else pissed off? Want to tell us to go? We're open to that too. Because this work is tender. This is tender work. Yeah.
And it's a rites of passage for you to let that emotion and let that scenario out of your psyche so that you can lift up.
That's right.
And that's the Dr. Monica gave us. I mean, shoot, I'm happy that I've done it in clear. What is that called that we do?
Clearing,
but what's the other thing? Lacing.
Yeah.
Lacing. To do it in lacing, I've done it as a meditation, but to do it with body moving and faces and like the full embodiment of the emotion.
That's right.
That is healing.
That's right. Talking to the chair. Has anyone given themselves the opportunity to talk to the chair and let your 3-year-old self say exactly what you would want to say to your mother, or your 8-year-old self say? Like, get it out, or write the letter like I was suggesting. Like, those are the things that really help to move these energies out, for you to say exactly what you're thinking, you know, like no judgment, like let it out.
And that's what it is you can't, you have to be willing to let the emotions move through you. Literally what Monique is saying is that when you hold a story for 30 years, you are holding the emotion in your body.
That's right.
And when you think about it, that same emotion pops up.
That's right.
Not yet been willing to master and let go.
Right.
That's where courage is. That's where neutrality is. That's where willingness is. Knowing that you have to move beyond that stuff.
You get to. You totally get to. Absolutely.
You get to. I get to.
Yeah. I think one of the last things I'll say is that I realized that when I was very young, I realized that I was inheriting my parents' stuff, that it was going to be up to me. They weren't going to make it to the mountaintop. And it was going to be my responsibility to do it. And it's not been fun work, but it has been rewarding work. And the most beautiful part of it is that now I don't have to, my son doesn't have to do it because I'm doing it. Now he gets to go be free than I was. So anyway, go ahead, Sarah.
Mother. He gets to experience a different mother.
Yes.
Gaining in 0 to 7.
Yes.
It's not even on the consciousness.
Right.
Of what you experience.
That's right. Absolutely.
That's how we heal generational curses.
That's right. Yeah, that's how we heal it. Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
I just wanted to say that what I noticed when I was writing down where my mother's consciousness was, is that for her, it definitely got worse as I got older because of the things that were happening in her marriages. But so mostly I was writing down, like, first it was fear, willingness, reason, and love, and then it was anger, willingness, reason, and love, then grief, fear, anger, courage, love, fear, anger, willingness, acceptance, love. But the main thing that I think was always there for her is fear and love. And I think the love, like, definitely the love was when she was focused on us, but she could be very, very loving, but everything else happening in her life was causing her so much fear and anger. And so I feel like was fortunate that I got a lot of love and nurturing from her, but the way that I saw her deal with it in her life was
Hold on one second.
And we bounce in between.
yeah, for sure. And
I'm sorry. Okay, Grace.
something I realized this weekend that this is something I've known for a long time, been trying to unravel it for a long time, and I still can't figure out what the root of it is, but I'm a little closer. It's just that I went through a phase where between like 16 where I fell in love for the first time.
Say that part again. I'm sorry. Can you say you went through a phase when what?
When between the ages of like 16 and 19, I fell in love for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happened, my heart just like burst open. Like I feel like my heart chakra just burst open. And it was so much healing happened for me around a lot of stuff that had happened before when I was a kid. And I remember feeling so completely open and accepting and loving towards my mom. And I was just like, there were no limits there. And it was for a few years, I just felt like I had no judgment and just thought she was so beautiful. And I would tell her all the time. And that carried over even after this relationship ended. And then I got into a really, really destructive relationship where I started to hate myself. And then I started to feel really ashamed of my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always like I see the connection there. Like I started to hate myself because the relationship I was in I felt so unworthy. And then the result of that was I felt really ashamed of my mom. And especially in the ways that I felt like we were the same, because I feel like the ways in which we are the same is a lot of open-hearted vulnerability and sort of trust in the world in ways that then we are betrayed, usually by the men that we're with. And like I just became very ashamed of seeing myself and seeing her in myself. And I haven't quite figured out, I've done so much work to unravel everything around that, and I haven't quite figured out how to feel that exact grip quite yet, because I still will feel that resentment and shame around those ways in which we are alike. Anyways, I'm still looking for that, but I kind of realized it again this past weekend. I hadn't thought about it in a while.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe that's something you could take into your, first of all, the sound is really interesting. Like it's sort of in and out. Your sound is.
Oh, okay.
But maybe that's something you can take into, the question Gabrielle asked, and I love this question, Gabrielle, who do I get to be because of my mother, right? That's such a powerful question. And, for instance, for me, for a long time, because of my relationship with my mother, I got to feel completely victimized by men because of my relationship with her, because I judged her as weak. And so I showed up in relationships as weak. That was the connection. So you can see, like when you first started, you said that your mother, how I heard it was that she suffered in her relationships with men. So when you had a relationship where you had a betrayal, you moved into that experience that was a frequency that your mother was holding. You see the connection?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, it's almost like you were angry at her for patterning that for you. And on some level, like a subconscious thing, because that's where she lived. And so you didn't have it sounds like you didn't have someone to model for you how to move through betrayal or disappointment in a way that didn't make you a victim, in a way that allowed you to sort of still be self-loving and, you know, still be aware and present to who you are and your gifts. Like, because that relationship was so painful, it's like you collapsed into an experience of unworthiness. But where'd you learn that from?
It feels so complex. I'm not even sure. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because with my dad, her reaction was to just obliterate him in every way she could. And she very forcefully moved out of that relationship. And that was like one of the first times that I remember seeing her act in a way that was powerful. I mean, her power always came with rage. And, but
that's actually force. So rage would be right. So if she's not acting from a place of love and self-care, and not to say that we shouldn't use rage, but you have to, like, you can't know her, and you can see the tree and the fruit that it bears.
Yeah.
So it may have looked like power, but the evidence was what fruit bared from her life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's starting to make sense. Looking at the screen, I see the differentiation you're making between power and force, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Power. It wasn't really a true place of empowerment.
Right. It was reaction. It was in reaction to something. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then in her second marriage, things were happening that she was really, really, really unhappy with, and it was breaking her. Like, she actually went to the hospital, the mental health hospital, for a while because of circumstances in that relationship, but she stayed in it. She just stayed in it miserable, and she was just so angry for years.
Right.
But yeah, it was something about the ways that, like, seeing her in that relationship where she was miserable on the one hand, but then she was trying to make the best of it on the other hand, and the ways that she would try to keep herself happy, I felt so ashamed. Like, oh, this is interesting. I hadn't thought about it this way before. I mean, the ways that she would try to keep herself happy was prescription pills, alcohol, shopping, and people pleasing.
Mm-hmm. So with desire on the scale, that sounds like desire, because alcoholism, that's you know, grief, fear, all of that is down here. And so, you know, it's a beautiful thing to witness, and then to make the connections and then see how that shows up in your own life. And then where do you want to go with it?
Okay.
I mean, it's so powerful.
Removing the ceilings of the levels that we get stuck at, because it's literally illusion that we think we're stuck in desire.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally an illusion that we think there is no other option for me to move beyond this. This is all there is.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, she didn't think she had options.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
That's the only reason why we stay.
Mm-hmm.
If we truly know, if we have the courage to believe there's something higher, we are gonna reach for it. That's the law of the universe.
That's right. You're gonna expand, because expansion is the law of the universe. And when you're not expanding, you're dying. It's as simple as that.
Yep. And that's where, you know, you said that it looked like she went further downhill the older you got. She thought she reached the ceiling in her consciousness.
Yeah.
And if you've reached the ceiling, you can't go no higher. You can either stay or go down.
Right.
And this exercise is really so we can get a bigger grasp of what's going on, and so that we get to ask ourselves, am I willing to remove that invisible barrier of where my mother was stuck at for a certain time, or where she is now, Now, do I get to choose to accept things, accept my past, accept her? Am I willing to do these things? And these are literally steps too.
Mm-hmm.
Not only are they levels, they're steps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you are at Pride, you get to have the courage to start affirming things and empowering yourself. You get to start to go up to neutrality, to start to trust the laws of the universe, to start to release and let go of things, and start to feel a level of satisfaction. Then you get to start to be willing to have faith,
Mm-hmm.
to have intention, to be hopeful. Not only are they levels, it's a ladder.
Mm-hmm.
You get to go one to the next, reaching higher and higher. Most of us aren't going to go from anger to joy. You have to go through all of them to get to joy. So this is a beautiful imprint. I mean, when I first found it, I was like, okay, today I feel like I'm here. So that means I need to at least practice affirming my life.
Mm-hmm.
If I was at a day where I was accepting and I had given some forgiveness, I was like, okay, today I need to try to understand things deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So that I can have reason for my life, so that I can have some reasoning of why I am here. What is my purpose? And living that out.
Yeah.
This is powerful medicine.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So thank you, Sarah. Is there something else? Because
There's so much bouncing around between the different levels that it gets confusing, but I'm getting a lot out of this. That's
yeah, it's okay. Thank you so much. And be gentle with yourself, right? Like, be gentle with yourself. Like, there's a spectrum. There's a spectrum. So at 2:00 in the afternoon, I could be at peace, but by 6:00 in the evening, I could be at guilt.
It's just that simple.
Okay. So it really is a spectrum, and be gentle with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 5 more minutes. Thank you so much, Sarah. Does anyone else want to say anything briefly before we conclude our time today? And we'll be back together on Thursday.
Hi, Monique. It's Renee.
Hi, Renee. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. I just briefly just wanted to say that I feel like for me, I've been able to, so who have I been? I've been able to get to the level of courage in both of my experiences with my mothers. I think, I don't know that either of them, from what I've been able to observe, got to a point above that. And so I feel like my mother who raised me got to the point of maybe pride. But I feel like both of them were at levels, like I've pushed to get to at least courage.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we all have been operating at levels. Huh? Oh, sorry, my son's waking up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just what I wanted to share.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you for that. I hear you. It's when I think about your experience and just having the adoptive mother and the birth mother and how intricate it is for you, and I'm just holding space for you is what I'll say. I'm holding space for you to really integrate some of the pieces that might feel like you don't know where to place them. Mm-hmm. Because I know you can. I know it's possible is what I'll say. I know it's possible. So thank you, Renee.
Miss Monique, I know we're gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to share this little piece that has been extremely transformational too. A lot of what increases our levels of consciousness and our levels of healing are the questions we ask ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it is a higher self, divine self question asking your lower self, or letting somebody outside of you ask you questions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of the work we're doing here. So for each one of these levels, there are different kinds of questions that come with them that lift us up,
Mm-hmm.
that make us reach. When you ask somebody a question, most of the time, they don't answer immediately. They need time for this huge, massive amounts of knowledge, intuition, ancestral insight to gather and actually form an answer.
Mm-hmm.
These are the beautiful things that shift us. And that's why our environment is for the most part, just as important as what we feed ourselves internally. Because our external environment can lift us up. You know, what we see and experience, those kind of questions, we start to question things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just important to take time to ask yourselves questions, and the questions that do pop up for you, if you have to write them down and get back to them at a time where you can give yourself attention, that will serve you so much. Your spirit is trying to feed you your own medicine.
Yes. Gabrielle, do you have a question that you ask yourself?
There are so many questions. I think because being visionary too, like questions just come out. That it's the ideology thing. But it's very intuitive. So today, when I looked up right before the class, I was like, oh, we're at the seeing phase. It instantly dropped in. Who do I get to be because of my mother's experience?
Yes. Powerful.
And a more generalized question is, who do I get to be today because of my complete life experiences?
Mm-hmm.
That's a general question we can ask ourselves every day, and that I have asked myself. You know, who do I get to be today because of the world we're living in, because of this that happened, and da 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 da.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. I ask myself, what do I need? Like when I feel myself not feeling at peace, like it's like, oh, there must be something that I need. So I'll ask myself, what do I need?
Yes.
And then I will ask myself, how can this get better? How can this get better? Because sometimes stuff is so foul that I go, wait a minute, how can this get better? Right. You know, or what else is possible here? What else? What am I missing? What else can I see? What other possibility is available?
Yes. Those are such good questions.
Yeah.
Definitely. What do I need? That's such a conservationist question. It is so, what is conservation? She is power.
Yes.
So it's such a power, like literally you are asking what needs to come to me for this moment to have a level of completeness and harmony. That's a question I need to ask myself more. And I mean, I really have to be down to ask myself that.
Yeah.
Like, Gabrielle, what do you need right now? And it's usually frantic, like, what do you need?
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
That's a great question. I'm writing that one down because I need to ask myself that more often.
So, okay. Well, with all of that, it's 8:32. So now we've gone over 2 minutes. And I just want to say thank you to everyone. And Gabrielle, this was powerful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I just want y'all to know I nicknamed Gabrielle Miss Madam President. Because the woman is only 29. And if you can put 20 years on it, she's going to be running the world. I see it. I totally see it. I see she's going to be running the world. So I thank you, Madam President, for giving us such brilliance tonight. Thank you so much. And so I want to say thank you to everyone for being here. We'll be together again on Thursday. We have 3 more classes, and we're gonna start opening the space up, opening it up, opening up the heart, and opening up the mind, and absolutely being in a space of like, what else is possible? What else is possible here? What else? So with that, Gabrielle, you want to pray us out?
Yes, I want to pray us out, and you brought my little girl forth.
Okay.
So we are going to pray for our little girls in this moment, and Brother Halim is going to be with his little boy in this moment. We just give so much gratitude for our life experiences as a collective, because we know and we trust that there is something bigger here in store for us. And we want to hold our little girls in this moment so that she can begin to trust us from what she saw and what she experienced as a youth, and that she can start to put the pieces together in a way that serve her higher, in a way that allows her to move through the world with a confidence and a trust and a knowing of who she is and what she is capable of, and how this world works for her, because everything serves to further us. That is without fail. And Great Source, we give gratitude for you for providing these laws that we stand on and that we walk on, and that lead us to a wholeness, to a harmony, to a completeness, a level of peace and bliss that is all encompassing. We thank you so much for this work that you've channeled through Ms. Monique Ruffin, and for our participants for having that courage and reaching for higher levels of consciousness to not only change their lives, but their grandchildren's, their children's, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren's lives. We thank you so much for this moment. Amen and Ashe. Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was awesome. Okay. We will be together again, and if you have any questions, please share in the room, you all. Like, I know it's I don't know. You do what works for you. I don't want to make people do anything. Everything is perfect as it is. So peace and blessings, everyone. I love you. Thank you, Gabrielle. Thank you, everyone, for asking questions. Thank you, Halim. I want to always acknowledge you, because you're the man holding it down. And thank you for the little boy within Halim, because he is a courageous young boy who shows up with all these goddess women. So we really appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.